especially if you're remarried, right? So if
Hmm.
you're remarried, there are two sets of grandparents on your
Yes.
side and two sets of grandparents on their side. I know when I was coming up, we that was a tradition on Christmas Day that around noon or so we went to my mom's mother and dad, their house for like a luncheon, and then we had to go to my dad's parents for dinner. That was kind of like we did that every year. And I remember like not wanting to eat, just wanting to play with my toys. And then I already ate there. I don't want to eat again. And, that was simple. That was
Right.
just like,
Right.
and they lived really close by, both sets of grandparents. There was no travel time really. It was just right down the road. And so I think now, or I think back to that time, how I didn't even want to do that.
Yeah.
I wanted to hang out and, be relish in whatever the new toy was or the new outfit I got if I was older, or, sit around in my PJs and watch Christmas movies. Hey, this is Diane Dirks.
And I'm Rick Voiles.
We've been working with co-parents in conflict for more than 2 decades. We've taught classes, written books, counseled parents, empathized, and agonized a few times to help people make sense of their complicated families.
We were talking one day, and it occurred to us that helping the most difficult cases comes down to one simple concept. Is one parent willing to let go of the tug-of-war rope, or is it worth it to hold on and fight?
So we invite you to take this journey with us each episode as we tackle the questions, should you hold on or let it go? Welcome to Co-Parent Dilemmas, where we give you practical solutions to those impossible co-parents. Good morning, Rick, on this frigid morning.
Yes. Good morning, Diane. How are you?
Good. So
Are you
Atlanta
dressed?
is in a freeze, and surprisingly, here at the island, we are in a unusual cold snap.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be tough being on an island. I mean, just mentally, I would think, ooh, warm weather year
Yeah.
round. But
So
no.
I was driving to my yoga class, which I usually ride my bike, but it was too cold. And on the way back, I saw a woman walking with a hat and a scarf. You never see that down here. It was like,
So,
anyway, so the holidays are upon us, Rick. So just in a couple of weeks, people will be celebrating Christmas and Hanukkah and the New Year and all of that. I think Hanukkah starts on Christmas Day this year as well. So it's all jumbled together.
wow.
Yeah. Um, and but the holidays for our listeners, our co-parent listeners, are often not welcome for a lot of reasons.
They're not happy days.
I mean, think back. Do you remember the holidays without your kids, or the very first holiday you had without your children?
Yes.
And it was hard. There's a grief process that kind of goes with that.
Definitely an
Yeah.
adjustment. Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. First of all, the good news story.
Good.
And this is sort of holiday related because a lot of people are flying, right?
Okay.
Getting on a plane, going to their home, where their original home is, maybe just visit parents or siblings or family members. And so I don't think there's anything, I don't like flying to begin with. There's nothing worse than flying during the holidays because everybody is trying to get somewhere, and weather can be a problem, which means flights get delayed or canceled. You're calling your loved ones and sorry, you're going to pick me up at the airport at 2 a.m. And they're like, ugh. So this is a story about a United Airlines pilot who became a social media sensation after personally overseeing the order and distribution of 30 pizzas to 155 passengers on his flight.
Holy cow.
He is now monikered the Pizza Pilot.
Oh, that's cute.
Scott Wardle says that after 30 years of piloting for the Air Force and as a civilian, he knows what it feels like to be stuck at the airport. And then he just had to do something to show we care. So that care took off with posts and photos of Wardle handing out pizzas using the check-in counter as the gate as a kitchen counter going viral. So the gate counter there, where you check in,
Yep.
that became his kitchen counter. It began when the Boise-based Wardle was all set for a flight to Phoenix via Houston. But about 45 minutes in, someone on the flight had fallen unconscious.
Ooh.
Though there were 2 nurses and a medic on board, Wardle felt he couldn't take any chances and came in for an emergency landing at Albuquerque at 11 p.m., just as the food court was shutting down.
Ooh.
Hoping to get the passage back underway as soon as possible, he suddenly received word that his cabin crew had maxed out their hours, meaning he had to wait for a new set of attendants. So he made sure and confirmed that they were on their way. And then he started exploring options of what he was going to do to make sure, I guess, there wasn't mutiny by the passengers. I don't know.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So he decided he was going to order pizzas for everyone. And he said it was an easy thing since most people like pizza. And he said he loves his job, and the only burden he felt during the whole ordeal was compassion and sympathy for the passengers. He picked up the phone and just started ordering dozens of pizzas.
Oh, wow.
So this guy is a hero.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great story. So speaking of the holidays, we're going to address an issue that I think a lot of parents deal with, especially when they're going through divorce and negotiating their parenting plan. And then they negotiate, Rick, you know this as a mediator, they negotiate based on it being a bargaining chip. The holidays is a bargaining chip, correct?
Yes. Yep.
I'll let you have Thanksgiving if you let me have Christmas or Hanukkah. I'll let you have, spring break if you let me have fall break, which sounds good on the surface, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the interesting thing about the holidays is they're often 2 weeks or more. 14 days or 17 days, depending on the school schedule, right?
Right.
So that's a lot of time. Instead of just saying you can have the whole holiday and then I'll have it next year, it's a very sentimental time.
Sure.
For parents. Family traditions, are you staying in town? Are you leaving town? Are you going to visit your mom or your new spouse's parents? Or, there's all these decisions that need to be made. There's even been movies made about how difficult it is for even adult children to navigate.
Yes.
And I always still do take the stance that my kids didn't ask for this mess. So they get to decide, and I just follow suit now that they're adults. Right.
Yep.
Because had their dad and I stayed together, it would have been a lot easier to navigate.
Sure. Yes.
So now they have, many sets of parents and many halves, holes, and step siblings and all of that stuff to try to get together and see. So here's a message I got from Kyle, which started my thinking about this whole thing. He said, my parenting plan states that we split Christmas Day at noon. But as my children have gotten older, they really hate that and would like to stay at one place and just relax. But their mom is not okay with changing it. But I thought I'd get your opinion on what is best for teens in this regard. Thanks, Kyle.
Huh.
So a lot of unknowns. We don't know what's best for Kyle's children because we don't know Kyle's children. But I don't think there's a prescription for what is best around anybody's holidays. Why not, Rick? What are the complications around that?
Yeah, we're all different. We all think of the holidays different. There may be with different levels of ages. I mean, he happens to have teenage kids, but you got a 7-year-old and you got a 14-year-old. There's so many different dynamics to take into consideration.
Yeah. What do you think about the splitting Christmas Day in half?
It's going to have a different effect on the different age children also. I could see it working, but practically it's a nightmare because you got to take all your stuff with you, even if I'm staying over there. Do I come back later and pick up my toys? It's practically, from a practical point of view, it's very difficult.
So why do you think parents do it?
I think because, well, first of all, I think they're thinking of what they want for that Christmas, and they don't want to be alone on
Mhm.
that day when because of the loss, the sentimentality, and the photographs and all that stuff.
Right.
I think that's what makes it hard.
Yeah. So I kind of think parents do that to avoid their grief.
Yeah, for them.
You
Yeah,
know?
they're not so much about what the children are going to want necessarily.
Yeah, I've seen very complicated plans where one parent has, because of family traditions, which always seems to drive this decision, right? You know, one family says, or a family tradition is everybody gets together on Christmas Eve. That's like a bigger deal than the Christmas Day dinner or whatever. And I've seen parenting plans where like dad has them Christmas Eve and then takes them back to mom's and then she has them overnight and then he picks them up at 10 a.m. and then he has them for
Right,
Christmas and then he
right.
takes them back to her. And
Uh,
it's like these poor children.
yes,
Who
yes.
is that serving? And is that really, really what the kids want? And I agree with you. So much of it has to do with their ages. You know, a 3-year-old might really want to be with mom or dad. However, a 3-year-old really doesn't even know what day it is,
No,
honestly. If you
no.
told him, if you told him yesterday was Christmas Day, they'd believe you, you know.
Hmm.
So the question is, at what age do these traditions really start to solidify and become extremely important? And I would say probably in that elementary school age,
Yeah.
6 to 12 age group, where it just becomes something that they want to hang on to.
Yes.
But it's also in that age group where they're parent pleasers and they do want time with both parents. So I understand Kyle's children going, a teenager now, like, seriously? First of all, I want to sleep in till 11 on Christmas
Yes.
morning
Uh-huh.
because I stayed up till 2 a.m. talking to my girlfriend or whatever.
Right.
And so I want to sleep in. You know, I don't want to get up at 7 a.m. and see what Santa brought me. You know, I want to sleep
Nope.
in. And now you're telling me I'm going to get up and within an hour, I've got to go over to my mom's house. And, you know, it's just, I get that. That's frustrating. So I think up until about age 5 or 6, it doesn't really matter to the children. You
Right.
can make Christmas Day any day and they'll be happy between about, and this is, I'm not making this prescription for everybody, but I'm just talking about child development right now.
Yes. Yeah.
That 6 to 12, I think, is when they really like routine and get really stuck to these family traditions, want to do it the same. And I think you have to be careful that you don't promise that because things are going to change.
Definitely.
If you negotiated splitting things, what it looked like this year is probably not going to be what it's going to look like next year because we're going to switch it up again. So you really have to prepare your children that the holidays are flexible. We'll develop some traditions that we always do, but not necessarily on the day or the day before or the day after, right?
Yes.
So develop traditions that they can hang on to, like, you know, the weekend before Christmas that you're with me, whenever that is, we always go and watch, look at Christmas lights and drink hot chocolate or whatever. That's like a tradition. Or we always make cookies on the night that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer shows on television. Something, you know, like
Yes. Yeah.
there are so many things that you can make as traditions that don't require splitting the holiday up in very weird ways.
Right. Doesn't require a date.
Right. Another thing that bothers me about putting this in the parenting plan that we will always split Christmas Day at noon or whatever is you can never travel and
Oh,
be anywhere on Christmas Day. I mean,
yes.
because you can't get back. What happened to the guy in the good news story is going to happen to
Uh-huh.
you. And
Yes.
then you're going to be in contempt for not getting your kids back on time, right? So many people do not live in their original hometown. I
No.
don't, you don't.
Mm-mm.
So you want the option of traveling. And even if you all lived in the same town when you got together, I mean, when you did the divorce, that doesn't mean that 5 years from now, somebody's not going to be living in a different place or somebody's relatives aren't moving away to where they would want to travel.
Yeah.
So for me, apart from what the kids need or want, splitting that day and codifying it in the court order, to me, is bothersome.
Yeah. And I would hope, I mean, there's always, every parenting plan says these two adults, parents of these children, can do anything they want as long as they both agree. And I would hope that somewhere along the line, they both exercise that right and say, okay, here's how we're going to do it now, even though we codified it.
Oh, you're so hopeful. Most of our listeners are saying, what? Did Rick just say that? We hope that they will otherwise agree. Really?
Get real, Rick.
What did Kyle just say? She won't.
She doesn't agree.
It.
No,
she's not going to change it. This is the way she wants it, and I can have it, just like we tell people, right? If the court order says it, you can have it, and stick to the court order to stay out of conflict. So those of you who are contemplating changing your parenting plan for whatever reason, or you haven't yet put a parenting plan in place, keep this in mind around the holidays. Mm-hmm. Because when you're in that mediation room and you're using the holidays as a bargaining chip, it sounds really good in the moment.
Right.
But then when theoretically it sounds good, but when you put it into practice, you might find that the kids really hate it. You know, like you said, your 7-year-old just got the toy that he's been asking for a year. Mm-hmm. And then he saw 3 different Santas to make sure that somebody told the real Santa that the train set is coming, or the big Lego set I wanted is coming, or the puppy, whatever it is. And now I finally get it. And then mom or dad says, okay, pack your clothes, time to go. And they're like, what? I don't really want to go. So
I just want to play.
In practice, it can be a problem.
Definitely.
What are some other issues with extended family around the holidays that you can think of, Rick, that complicate this?
Well, you've got blended family issues that also come up. So my kids aren't here, but your kids are here. And so we're having Christmas for your kids, but we can only open half of the presents that are under the tree. And then we're going to have another opening of gifts in the afternoon with my kids. And then your kids don't want to be there. And it just becomes a nightmare.
Okay, you've lost me. Whose kids are doing what now? When?
My kids and your kids.
So there's blended family issues within the child's immediate family.
Yep.
Then you've got grandma and grandpa saying, you haven't been here for 3 years. When are you going to come see us? And then especially if you're remarried, right? So if you're remarried, there are 2 sets of grandparents on your side and 2 sets of grandparents on their side. I know when I was coming up, that was a tradition on Christmas Day that around noon or so, we went to my mom's mother and dad, their house for like a luncheon. And then we had to go to my dad's parents for dinner. That was kind of like, we did that every year. And I remember like not wanting to eat, just wanting to play with my toys. And then I already ate there. I don't want to eat again. And, that was simple.
Right.
Was just like, right. And they lived really close by, both sets of grandparents. There was no travel time really. It was just right down the road. And so I think back to that time, how I didn't even want to do that.
Yeah.
I wanted to hang out and, be relish in whatever the new toy was or the new outfit I got if I was older, or, sit around in my PJs and watch Christmas movies. I don't know. Although we didn't do that back then because we only had 3 television stations.
Yeah. Click, 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 click. Why did the dial always have 10 stations?
I don't know. We had this like antenna on the top of our house that my dad had hooked up to what they called a rotor. Did you have one of those? And you could turn the antenna to go north or south or west. And anyway, that's off point. But Suddenly see I had a memory.
Yeah,
No,
Christmas
we
memories.
we didn't watch movies. I think we may have turned the radio on and listened to Christmas music.
Hmm.
Because back
Hmm.
then we didn't even have we had records. Like my mom had an Andy Williams Christmas record that we played on the record player. I'm really dating myself now. Anyway, things are way more complicated, is my point. It was very simple back then, and
Oh,
now
back in the
things
day.
I know. Exactly. But now it really can be uh, anxiety producing, not only for the kids, but for the parents.
I wonder if Kyle's asked his children specifically, what is it that they don't like about it? Because if I was going to try and come up with a plan B to make them happy or at least a little less stressed, I would need to know what it is that is driving them crazy.
Hey, listeners, you've heard me talk about the daily devotional for frustrated co parents that I'll be releasing January 1st. Some of you have responded with interest in a subscription, so thank you. Starting this week, you can officially subscribe online. Since the holidays are near, consider giving yourself the gift of daily faith encouragement, as well as a few tips and skills from my archives thrown in there. You might also know someone on your gift list who could benefit. If so, check out the links in the show notes. And happy holidays. Well, we always say don't ask a question you already know the answer to. I don't know that we need to ask them because it's implied. Think about this when they were 7 and 8 and getting up at 5 a.m. and saying, Dad, get out of bed. I want to get see my presents.
Right.
By the time noon came around, they were already up for 7 hours. They were ready to go.
Yeah, that's true.
Now you have teenagers who are sleeping till 10 or 11, and then their dad's saying, okay, let's get up, hurry up, open your gifts because you got to be ready for your mom at noon. To me, that's the crux of the problem is their routines have changed.
Well, then I would say, okay, let's open our presents the day before, or for that matter, just to exaggerate the point home, the week before we can open all of our presents. That way it's just another day. You get up and go to your mom's in your PJs if you wanted to.
But Dad, you just don't get it. I'm tired
help
of
me
this.
Understand.
I want to lay around and do nothing.
Yeah.
So I think it may be also for their teenagers that have been doing this for many years, they just may be tired of the
back and forth
hustle and bustle around the holidays. And they would probably do best to have a split week. 1 week this parent's house, 1 week at the other, without these weird exchanges in the middle of the holiday. Right?
Yeah, because for that matter, all right, I don't care when we open our gifts. Let's open them anytime because I don't care what day we have. As long as we have a Christmas together, doesn't matter what day it's on. Okay, so then now you guys, go ahead and go to your mom's house the night before and then sleep in as late as you want at Christmas Day. Well, then what I'm saying is, all right, we're not splitting Christmas Day, but mom doesn't want to do that. So
yeah, it's just complicated. But I think we could sit here and talk about all kinds of different ways to split the holiday, depending on traditions, when they're going to travel and what the kids are used to, and blah, blah, blah. But I think when it comes right down to it, we have to ask ourselves as parents, what is our motivation to split this up in a certain way? And I still come back to the avoidance of grief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's painful, especially the first couple of years, to think of showing up at the Thanksgiving dinner by myself with everybody else there with their children. And people saying, oh, where are the kids? Oh, they're at their moms, they're at their dads. I get that, but you'll get over it.
Yeah, I remember teaching the class. We would talk about that first year, and probably is the hardest because every holiday, every day that there was a tradition tied to it for your family is a reminder that you are separated, you're divorced now. So that first year, you have multiple uh, points where you are dramatically reminded. And then the second year, you go through the same thing. It still has an impact, but you're sitting here thinking, well, I survived last year, so this year's a little bit easier. And it takes about a 2-year cycle of grief
Sure.
before you can really go, all right, I've got this.
Right. And by the time the 2 years are up, you realize probably shouldn't have put that in the parenting plan.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you've let go of a lot by then. Yes.
Right. So if you think about it from the child's point of view, and, granted, there are some kids, especially in that elementary school age window, who really do want to see each parent on Christmas Day, but I suspect that's because of the gifts.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Can we just
Or because they're highly sensitive and in tune with their parents' emotions and feel like if they don't see them, that parent will be sad.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And I
Yeah.
don't think that's good for the kids to be worrying about.
Definitely not.
So even if your child says, but I really want to see you on Christmas Day, you say, yeah, I know, but when you get back here, we're going to have or you get to have another Christmas Day.
Right.
I remember, I don't know if it was my first or second Christmas without the kids. I can't remember where that started, but I remember one of the first Christmases I didn't have the kids. I think I was getting them on the 26th. So I was getting them the day after. We had split the holiday from school letting out clear up to the day after because I didn't want to split Christmas Day. And what I did on the morning of the 26th, I think they were coming to me like at 6 p.m. on the 26th.
Mm-hmm.
This was back when, I'm talking about mid 80s. This was back when Black Friday was really Black Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And the 26th was a huge day to go get, discounts on a lot of things, right?
Right.
So I remember that year I didn't, because I was broke. I didn't do any Christmas shopping for the children until the day after Christmas and took advantage of all these deals. And
Nice.
then I was like, and then we had Christmas Day on the 27th. And I will tell you at that point, they were maybe 7 or 8 years old, that they were perfectly fine having
Yes.
Christmas all day at dad's on the 25th and Christmas all day at mom's on the 27th.
Right.
They did not cry about that.
No.
And I was happy because I saved a little bit of money by not having Christmas on Christmas Day.
That's just clever. Very clever.
So it's a matter of attitude.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I understand that attitude is difficult, especially if you grew up with very strong traditions, and changing the traditions almost seem unbearable
Mm-hmm.
because they're weighted with so much meaning.
Yep.
And, psychologically, there's all kinds of things that happen in our brain around these triggers
Yeah.
that we don't want to let go of. Right. I remember on Christmas Eve, my dad would drink more than usual. And my dad was a happy drunk. So I used to love Christmas Eve because he was extra happy and loving toward me.
Oh, here, have another drink.
And would promise me things. And he didn't drink very much, but on the holiday he would. And so that's a screwed up memory, but it's like, psychologically, the holidays bring about a lot of different positive and negative triggers for people that they don't want to miss out on, or they don't want to let go of, or they want to manage. And so divorce really throws a giant monkey wrench into that.
Yep.
So it's a matter of not avoiding it, but going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes the way we structure holidays for the kids is to try to avoid some of those feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you just have to face them. And the holidays didn't become less meaningful for me because of it, but I had to change how I thought about the holidays.
Right.
And I had to become a little bit more structured in traditions that we kept up. But my kids still to this day do with their kids because we came up with our
Yeah.
own. It's kind of like Rick, we talked about the plan B.
Hmm.
Plan B around the holidays is when you let Kyle, when you can't get what you want with your ex, Kyle's plan B is to say, you know what? I get that. Mom's really stuck on changing this, Christmas Day exchange. Let's start having our Christmas Day a different day. Let's say Kyle has
Yeah.
the first half of the Christmas break and mom has the second half. Maybe they exchange at noon. Then say, let's have Christmas Day on the 23rd at our
Right.
house.
Yes.
So on the 25th, it's just another day.
Another day.
You
Yep.
can wake up at noon and walk out the door with mom. I won't force you into the day for my purposes.
Correct.
If he gets the kids on the 25th next year and keeps them through New Year's or whatever, then again, we will have a Christmas on the 28th or whatever, so that this idea is not forced upon them. And I also want to say you have to put your extended family members on notice because they will be clawing at you. But the kids always came over on Christmas Eve, and you mean they're not going to be here this year? And there's a lot of
right
guilt-laden statements that can
Yeah.
happen. And you
Mhm.
have to say to mom and dad or whoever you usually spend the holidays with, you have to say, listen, I know this cramps your style a little bit, but we have to think about what is good and easiest for the children.
Yes.
So we may not make it every year exactly at the time you want us to be there. We might have to improvise. We might have to change things around. So before you make holiday plans, call me and ask me what my schedule is.
Yes.
And you may have to accommodate my schedule with the kids. And that can
Yep.
be complicated when you have maybe 2 or more children who have divorce situations, which happens. And then it's hard. It's just hard. It's hard for everybody.
Right.
But it has to be focused on managing it so that the kids aren't the ones feeling guilty for just being a kid.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. What did you do with your kids? What did you do the year you didn't have your kids for the first time?
I think I can't remember back. I think I just made it another day for myself. I don't think we'd open the presents early. I think we were doing it later. So
Okay.
it was just like, well, like it was exactly like the day before.
Okay. So you didn't hang out with family or anything?
No.
Okay. So yeah, you're going to show up wherever you show up without the children. You're going to go to the Christmas Eve service by yourself or whatever it is that you're going to have to do, and you're going to cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you might even be angry because you didn't ask for this. And it might feel like the whole world is different. Everything, the tectonic plate just shifted. Now nothing feels right anymore.
That's right.
But that's temporary. As your emotions start to level out and as you begin to get into new routines with the children, as you begin to think about the holidays differently, you can be just as festive and just as cheerful and just as excited because you're deciding what day is important.
Right.
And for those of you who don't know this, we know that Christ was not born on the 25th.
Probably not even in the winter.
Right?
Yes.
It's a pagan holiday, which means it doesn't even have a religious meaning.
No.
Right? So it's okay. We're giving you permission to have Christmas in July if that's what you want to do.
Yes.
My daughter, I love her. She loves Thanksgiving food.
Yeah.
And it was always very hard for them. One Thanksgiving, you go to this parent's and the other one the next, and then sometimes the grandparents, blah, blah, blah. And this was about maybe 7 to 10 years ago. I don't know how long it was. She decided, since her birthday is in May, that all she ever wanted for her birthday was to have Thanksgiving dinner at her house. And
Oh,
she invites all of her friends and family. And we have a giant Thanksgiving dinner at her house every May
wow.
because she said, I never get to be with my friends on Thanksgiving because they're all with their
True.
required families.
True.
And that is really when we celebrate Thanksgiving
Oh, I love it.
because she gets to tell everybody she's thankful for all of
Mm.
them. And everybody gets to eat turkey and stuffing and green bean casserole and rolls and all those fun things in the middle of May.
I love it.
So it really depends on how you view it. So I just want to encourage those parents out there who are struggling this year to go through it, not try to avoid it. Feel your feelings, be sad, be angry, be whatever you are, but let your kids off the hook.
Yeah.
Don't require them to take care of your feelings. Oh, you have to be here. I'll be so sad. That's so wrong, even though it's true, because they can't fix it.
No.
But they'll try. But let them know that this is a time for celebration, not a time for guilt.
Yes.
Right. Cool. Before we sign off, I want to speak to our therapist listeners or our
Yeah.
parenting coordination listeners. I know we have some professionals who listen on the regular. And, we talk a lot on this show about professionals getting well trained. And I know
Mhm.
I've mentioned the AFCC as an organization that does good training for professionals in this field. And one of the things that is one of the most difficult issues to combat in therapy or in parenting coordination is parent child contact problems,
Sure.
which is a generalized way of describing when a child doesn't want to see a parent. It could be alienation, it could be justified. There could be all kinds of reasons why a child doesn't want to see a parent. But even when we're doing reunification, we always ask ourselves that big question: why is this child resisting time with a parent? And we try to investigate from that point of view instead of just saying they must be alienated
Yeah.
or the parent must be abusing the child. We don't make any of those assumptions. So, anyway, the AFCC is holding a 16-hour training for professionals in January, and it is called Advanced Issues in Family Law, Parent Child Contact Problems. And the group of people that are doing this training are the experts in this field. They've written articles and books and done research and all that. So I highly recommend, if you're a professional and you are finding yourself being court ordered into situations that you have no experience in, and you think, oh, this child doesn't want to be with his dad, and you're just going to employ regular family therapy modalities to try to fix it, you are probably going to fail and
Oh,
maybe do more harm than good. So
yeah.
I
Yeah.
really want to encourage professionals, if this is a new field to you, if you don't have much experience, please, please, please check out this training. It's not that expensive. You're going to get 16 hours of CE. It's all online. And these professionals know what they're talking about. So I'm going to put the link into the show notes. And, hopefully, if you're an attorney listening, and therapists who do this work, tell them about this.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so vitally important that professionals who are working in this field are doing it with the children in mind, and that they're doing it with a body of research behind them,
Yes.
that it is evidence-based work, that they're not just sort of willy-nilly, well, I'll just see what I can do, because there are unique challenges and dynamics that are presented in these types of cases. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay. Happy holidays, everybody.
And we mean it. It's not
Even
tongue in
though,
cheek.
even though we just talked about grief and sadness around the holidays, but we really hope that you'll take to heart what we just said. Go
Yes.
through your grief. And if you are putting a parenting plan together, be careful that you're not structuring the holidays around trying to avoid grief.
Yep.
Okay. All
Very
right,
good.
Rick. We'll talk to everybody next week.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. The information contained in this podcast is generic. It must not be misconstrued as constituting legal or psychological advice. Decisions relevant to any specific individual, family system, or case require the direct evaluation of skilled, child-centered professionals.